From a seed perspective, planting records are actually a lot easier to complete than from a vegetable or flower grower perspective because you don't really have a lot of successions. Maybe you grew a radish crop before you planted some tomato, but most seed crops are going to take up most of the season, so you probably only have one planting of something. Welcome to the Seed Farmer Podcast, the podcast where I want you to harvest seeds from some of the vegetables and flowers growing in your farm or garden, and then to plant that seed out to grow delicious vegetables and beautiful flowers. If you enjoy the Seed Farmer Podcast and find it is a good resource that helps you improve your seed work and farming, please support the show at spreadsheet.farm/support podcast. I'm your host, Dan Brisebois, seed grower at Turnasol Cooperative Farm and author of The Seed Farmer, a complete guide to growing, using, and selling your own seeds. This is another minisode while I wait to get back in the interview room. This episode is going to be part of what I call the Season Review Challenge. But before that, let's talk about the farm and then a little bit of news. So, what's going on at Turnasol Farm? As I record this at the beginning of October, we've had our first frosts, and my co-farmer Reed has mowed the damaged seed crops. Seed harvest is pretty much over right now. I do have about a dozen pepper plants in a greenhouse that I'm still picking from, but that isn't very much to talk about. That being said, we do have tons of vegetable crops still in the field, and the harvest crew will be pulling things out of the field until early November or so. We do have a 500-member CSA program, and that means a lot of vegetables every week. The other big thing on the farm right now is that Canada Post is currently on strike, and we need to figure out what that means for our farm. Now, I'm not going to get into labor movements or worker rights or the challenge of running public institutions at a loss and whether you should even worry whether you're losing money when you're running a public service. So I'm not going to get into any of that. That's for some other podcasts that you may listen to. Today, what I want to talk about is how the importance of postage, I guess, for shipping from a seed company perspective. In Canada, which is where I'm based, we have an option for letter mail where you can put stamps on a letter and ship them. And that means that, it costs $2 to $5 to ship a package of seeds, independent of where you're shipping it across Canada. And having letter mail available means that we can offer free shipping at a certain point after, currently I think it's like $50 or so, and it works out. Now, there's no tracking on that, which can be a hassle at times, but most of the letters with seeds in them get to their destination. The alternative is to ship by a parcel, also through Canada Post, or through some other courier service. And the bonuses of that is that there'll be a tracking number with it, and we can know exactly where it is. Sometimes there's insurance, so if it ever does get lost, we can get a certain amount of that back. But the lowest that we're going to get a parcel shipped from our farm to a client is something like $9. And often it's more $12 or $13, but it's not unusual to have it be $20 or more for further or more remote areas, especially as things get heavier. And those amounts are much harder for us as a small company to absorb with free shipping. And this is being from a seed company perspective. I know there's other small e-commerce businesses that ship other things with letter mail, but with seeds, because the packs are $4 or $5 a piece, it really is hard to leverage that money to provide the free shipping. And so maybe what I just want to say is I really appreciate the Postal Service and the postal workers who get the seeds to our clients, and I really value that. And it scares me right now that the government is in the process of restructuring the Postal Service, and it's a bigger unknown for our business down the line. So I'll also say that I'm really grateful that this is not peak seed shipping right now. Beginning of October, almost all our garlic pre-orders have already left. We are not into holiday seed sales. So this is just a little window where we have time to adapt and we have time to wait. But I am looking forward to some kind of solution happening and hoping that it's good for the most number of people. So that's Canada Post. Now for a little bit of news. First off, I'll be opening registration for the Seed Farmer Mentorship again in November. If you want to get on the wait list, you can do so at spreadsheet.farm/mentorship. This landing page has the details for what it looked like last time. It's going to be a bit different this year. I'm still figuring some of that out, but the big pictures are going to be similar. So you'll get some idea with that, and more details will be coming soon. The next news item is called Help Shape the 12th Seed Library Summit. And I found this in the Cool Bean News, I think the Seed Library Network. And I'm going to start off by saying that Cool Beans is one of my favorite newsletter titles. And here's the copy that I got from their newsletter. We're excited to begin planning the 12th Seed Library Summit, and we'd love for you to be part of it. Whether you're a seasoned seed librarian or just getting started, your voice and experience are welcome. Our first planning meeting will be held on Saturday, October 11th. You can register in advance for the meeting. The link is in the show notes. The last piece of news, I have a podcast recommendation. So last week on the Growing for Market podcast, there was an episode called Turtle Tree Seed founder Beth Everett on 45 plus years of farming at Meadowlark Hearth Farm in Nebraska. Now, full disclosure, I have not yet listened to the episode, but I really like Beth Everett. I like the work that they're doing at Meadowlark Hearth Farm. Love Turtle Tree Seed, so I don't see why this wouldn't be a great episode. And if you're listening to this seed podcast, you're probably going to like another podcast where they talk about seeds in some capacity. So that's the news. Send me any seeding news that you have that you want me to share, and I might share it. Now, let's get into today's minisode topic. Every fall, I like to run a season review challenge to make sure farmers take the time to learn from this season so you can plan an even better next season. This year, I wanted to focus the season review on growing seeds. So over the next 4 minisodes, I'll walk you through 4 different aspects of your farm to review the season from a seedy perspective. They'll all have a seed focus. If you want to go and watch a previous year's season review challenge that was focused more on market growers beyond seeds, there's a link in the notes and you can see all the videos at this point. And they are videos, so you could see people, not just hear them in your ears. So this is week 1 of the season review challenge. Let's start off by saying, why should you do a season review? If you don't consciously pay attention to what worked and what didn't, you are going to repeat things you don't want to repeat in the future. That's the basic importance for review. And the reason to do it now is that if you don't take the time while things are actively in your memory, you won't remember these things later on. And I know that you have so much on your list right now. You're harvesting bulk carrots and bulk potatoes, and you're cracking garlic to plant it, and you're doing field cleanup, and you have all kinds of fall markets. And I get that, but taking a little bit of time right now to capture what you feel and remember from your growing season while it's still active is going to pay off later on when you actually want to be doing planning and you want to be making decisions. So if you review now, you can get to planning next year even earlier. Today, what we will do is review your field records to make sure they are complete. When I say field records, there's 2 things I'm thinking about. There's your planting records and there's your harvest records. Let's start with planting records. Planting records are essentially a record of where you planted something, when you planted it, and how much you planted of it in that spot. You may already have planting records, and they may be totally complete. And if that's the case, right on, thumbs up to you. You got the first part done. If you did not complete your planting records, or maybe you have partial or very partial, or maybe non-existent planting records, now is a great time to complete these planting records or create them from scratch. The way that I would do that is, if you have a crop plan, print out what you planned on planting. And if you don't have any crop plan, then get a piece of paper on a clipboard and have some columns for location, approximate planting date, crop, variety and bed feet. Then you take your printout from your crop plan or your empty sheet, go and walk on your field and start at one end of the field and look at each bed that you go by and record what's in it right now. If it's empty, what was in it before? If it's something that had a succession, try to remember what was in it. And if there's anything that you don't remember what was in it, then you write a little scribble and you ask your team about that later on. Once you've done this, you want to get this digital as soon as possible. A paper copy is better than nothing, but a paper copy can be lost easily. Maybe take a picture of it at the least, but being able to digitize it or getting it into a spreadsheet sooner than later will mean that you don't have to worry about it and you can start using it. From a seed perspective, planting records are actually a lot easier to complete than from vegetable or flower grower perspective because you probably don't really have a lot of successions. Maybe you grew a radish crop before you planted some tomatoes, so a radish vegetable crop, you pull those out and then planted seed tomatoes. But most seed crops are going to take up most of the season, so you probably only have one planting of something. So seed crops are a lot easier to track down and record, and you don't have all those successions to worry about. So planting records should not be too big a deal. And the most important thing for you to get on your planting records, in addition to a crop and maybe a variety, is the bed feet that you planted at that time. That's the most important thing. Location and date is good too, but the bed feet, the length, is the most important. So that's what you want to get for your planting records. The other piece of your field records are your harvest records. This would be what crop you harvested, when you harvested it, and how much you harvested of it. For vegetables and flowers, this is quite an elaborate thing to track, and if you haven't kept up with it throughout the season, it can be quite tough to complete partial records. But for seeds, it is really a lot easier because probably you still have all the seeds you harvested this year. You're not selling it as it goes along. So it's something that if you haven't already weighted and measured it, then you can do that now. Maybe you've sown some of the green seeds like arugula or lettuce that you harvested in August, but that's really going to be the exception. You probably still have all your seeds. The other thing about seed harvest is that when you harvest a seed crop, there's still a lot of cleaning to do. So you need to wait until you have a fully clean seed before you get a weight on it. And you may not have even done much seed cleaning yet at this time of the year. So maybe you're actually in advance of your harvest records right now, or rather than late trying to catch up on things gotten out of control. You still have time. So no worries if you're not set up. And now's the time to set up your cleaning records. What you need is a column for crop, a column for variety, and then another for the weight that was harvested. You should probably use the same weight unit for all your seed harvest records. I'm a big fan of recording things in grams. I find they're so much more precise, and it's easier to turn a gram into a kilogram than dealing with ounces and pounds and going back and forth between those. But you can use whatever units you want. If you want, you can also add in a column for, the final cleaning date. Maybe you also have a column for harvest date if you know what it is. But what you really want is, the crop and the weight. And that's a pretty easy sheet to set up. If you were a salad green grower harvesting fresh salads and selling them at market, you might be harvesting 3, 4, 5 times from the same planting, or maybe one planting, and then you have 20 or 30 different plantings throughout the year. That's so much stuff to keep track of. Seed, you're going to have that one crop planted. You give a final weight for the whole thing. Easy peasy. Now, we've covered the 2 important field records I want you to put together. And now you have the bed feet that you've planted, and you're going to have the weight you harvested. You could divide them together, and then you get your weight per bed feet, and that's your yield, which is a phenomenal piece of information when you're going to be estimating what you can grow in the future in crop planning. This information is invaluable when it comes from your own farm. There are not many reference sources out there with seed yields. A few books. I will point out that I have included a seed yield range for all the crops in the Seed Farmer book that was released last fall that I think you should be happy to read. When I did that, I wanted to make sure I was filling the gaps that I saw in the seed literature at that point. Even though the Seed Farmer is a great book, and you'd probably love it for the yields and for all that other great seed info, There is nothing like having your own yield data. So this is the real value of completing your harvest and planting records now. So go and do that. And we'll be back soon for part 2 of the Season Review Challenge. That's another episode of the Seed Farmer Podcast. If you like this type of, crop planning and spreadsheet type episode, please let me know. Thank you to Sophia Sidelton for the theme music. You can hear more of their music at sophiasidelton.com. Thank you to Molly Brisebois for editing this episode. And thank you so much for listening. You can find more seed growing resources on my blog at seedgrowers.farm. While you're there, you can subscribe to my newsletter full of seed growing, crop planning, and farm spreadsheets. You can also find out where to order a copy of my book, The Seed Farmer, a complete guide to growing, using, and selling your own seed. And you can support the podcast at spreadsheet.farm/support podcast or follow the link in the show notes. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, now's the time. You wouldn't want to miss the next episode. Until then, happy farming.